I can't believe I get to make this video. Today I'm going to be making a video about two motorcycles that are, I call them mine, but nothing's really mine. Everything belongs to God. God gives us things as blessings and we get to keep them for a short time and then they're gone. So I will thank God for them while they're in my possession, and someday they will be gone and everything in the world will be gone. So we're going to look at a real quick verse here. This is 1 John 2:15 and following. Do not love the world or things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away, and also its lusts. But the one who does the will of God abides forever. So first up is going to be my Buell 1125R. This is 2008. That's the first year that they made them. I got this in 2011. Buell had already stopped making motorcycles at this point. They were owned by Harley-Davidson Motor Company. This was the first of the Buell liquid-cooled motorcycles, and it's phenomenal. I think that it is underrated. I think that they did not get enough press and enough credit for this motorcycle. It's an amazing motorcycle. From 2011 up to 2019, I rode this thing a lot, mostly in the Pacific Northwest, and I spent a lot of time riding in the rain and even occasionally in the snow. The premier forum for Buell motorcycles was called Bad Weather Bikers. All of the imagery that Buell used revolved around bad weather, thunderstorm and firebolt and lightning and thunderstorm and all that good stuff. So yeah, I spent a lot of time riding this in bad weather, and I rode it hard and I put it up wet. I mean, that's a saying, but that's a real thing that I really did. I rode this thing hard. And in 2019 I drained the fuel to box it up and ship it across the country, and parts were unavailable, and it was overdue on a valve service, and the battery was about shot. So after I moved back to the West Coast, I just never put gas back in it, and it just sat in my garage for the past 5 years. However, I recently acquired this thing. This is a 2007. The model is XL883L. However, it has a big bore kit, so it's not actually an 883. It's a 1200. I had it dynoed. I've got a Power Vision tuner on it. It makes 64 horsepower or something. I've never had the Buell dynoed, but it makes about double that. So when I got the Sportster, it didn't run. I got it for $1,000. It was a project, and I got it running. I got it set up the way that I wanted. I put the Clubman bars on, got some saddlebags, I put some taller shocks on, and had it dyno tuned. It had some Vance and Hines exhaust. I wrapped the header pipes. I took off the scratched up chrome. Everything on this bike is scratched up. This thing was beat up twice as bad as my Buell was. Like, I mistreat my things, but the guy that owned this, he did a real work on it. Anyway, I rode it for a few months, and man, I wanted it to be a performance motorcycle. I tried to make it into kind of a cafe racer, kind of a sport bike, and it just isn't. I don't care what you do to it. It's slow, it's heavy, it handles like garbage. I know someone out there would have an issue with me saying that, but it does. Trying to corner on this thing with any amount of speed, it's scary. It's shaky, it's wobbly, it's not solid, and you have to fight it to get into the corners. So after riding this for a few months, and it's a good little commuter bike, but after riding this for a few months, I decided to throw a gallon of gas and a fresh battery in this thing. Actually pulled the battery from the Sportster and put it in the Buell. And I figured it would crank and crank and crank, and it would finally start up and run right like crap, because the fuel would be gummed up and there would be coolant and fuel leaks and the oil pump would be cavitated. None of that. It started on the second crank. After sitting in my garage for 5 years, it fired up on the second crank, and it runs like it did the day I shut it off. It's ridiculous. I can't believe that. That's amazing. So riding this thing, it's phenomenal. It is a world-class super bike. I don't think it's technically a super bike, but it was on par with Ducati back in 2008 when these came out. You know, it is so powerful. It has so much torque. It's a dual overhead cam motor, but it still makes really good torque across the RPM range. And this red line's at, what is it, 11.5 or something, and the Sportster red line's at 55, I think. So I was bouncing the Sportster off the rev limiter all the time because I was used to this thing. But this thing, it's amazing. It rides like it's on rails. It's so smooth and predictable and solid. It doesn't wobble in the corners. It's freaking perfect. It's amazing. I just put a new rear tire on it. It's actually a really pretty rear tire. Michelin Power 6. I had some Pilot Pros on here before, dual compound tires. Anyway, Harley has also stopped making the Sportster now. So when I got the Sportster, I was like, okay, I'm getting a motorcycle that there's going to be longevity for. I can always get parts for it from Harley Davidson Motor Company. Except that they stopped making these, and I didn't realize how difficult it would be to get parts already. They stopped making these, what, 3 years ago? I think 2019 was the last year. I could be wrong. I went to get an O2 sensor. They don't make O2 sensors for these anymore. I couldn't believe it. They don't make anything for, everything's drive-by-wire, nothing's drive-by-cable anymore. So you're already running into difficulty finding parts for this. There will still be aftermarket parts around for a long time. Even though I can't find parts for the Buell, I will still be able to find aftermarket parts for the Harley. So they both have their value, and I will probably keep the Sportster. When this thing breaks and it dies, I'm not going to have any way to fix it unless I want to get something custom machined, and that's going to be ridiculous. The Sportster, I can't get parts from Harley Davidson Motor Company, but I can find something that will work. And the frame is made out of steel, so I can break out a welder if I mess up the frame, you know. The O2 sensor that I couldn't find, I could have gotten automotive grade O2 sensor, I'm pretty sure, and just changed the connector. Anyway, let's get to the part that I really wanted to do, though. Let's fire them up and see how they sound. So this is Vance & Hines. I think they were short shots or long shots or something. I don't remember. Pushrod motors do sound better. I've got to give them that. Sounds good. This Buell has a Barker muffler. This is one of the best performing mufflers. It has a fiberglass insert in it to deaden the sound. I was riding down the road one day and that fiberglass came out. I pulled off on the side of the road and I had to pull string out all the fiberglass. So it is freaking obnoxious right now. There we go. Sounds so mean. I ordered a fiberglass repack kit because that is obnoxious. So why did I open this video with this section of scripture? 1 John chapter 2 verse 15. Do not love the world nor the things in this world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Because motorcycles are freaking cool, man. For most people, getting your first motorcycle is a life-changing experience. And the natural tendency, I think every man says this, you sit on a motorcycle and you say, man, I love that thing. I freaking love that motorcycle. It's not just motorcycles, it can be anything. It can be a car or a truck, it can be a garden or a palm tree, it can be a cup of coffee or a pizza. Ridiculous. Do not love the world, do not love the things in the world. Love God. Jesus said that the first and greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all of your heart and soul and mind and strength. And the second greatest commandment is like unto it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And on those two things hang all the law and all the prophets. If you're doing those two things, you're going to follow all the rest of the law, because all of the other things are hinged upon loving God and the inclination of your heart. So what helps me, number one, going through life and having to lose things over the process of time, that's beneficial to realize that you can't keep things. But having a fatalist life view, looking through a fatalist lens, it's very beneficial for me. Some people can't handle it. It's how I survive. Verse 17, and the world is passing away, and also its lusts. We just talked about those. Lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life. But the one who does the will of God abides forever. With that, I'm going to turn a page back over to 2 Peter chapter 3. I love this section of Scripture. John and Peter are two of my favorite apostles, mostly because they talk about the end times. And they were right there. They were very intimate with Jesus. You know, it's like insider trading. They had inside knowledge, man, because they got the word straight from the horse's mouth. So he's talking about the return of Jesus. But the day of the Lord will come like a thief, in which the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the elements will be destroyed with intense heat, and the earth and its works will be found out. Since all these things are to be destroyed in this way, what sort of people ought you to be in holy conduct and godliness, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of God, because of which the heavens burning will be destroyed, and the elements will melt with intense heat? But according to his promise, we are looking for new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells. And then if you flip over to Revelation chapter 21, it talks, I think it's back in chapter 20, it talks about the destruction of the universe. Just like here, 2 Peter 3 talks about the destruction of the very elements melting with fervent heat down to the nuclear scale. All the little, subatomic quarks and all of the particles they didn't know about until they built the CERN reactor, that's all going away. And it's getting replaced with new heavens and a new earth. Revelation chapter 21 talks about new heaven and new Jerusalem coming together in a divine marriage. And that's where we get to spend eternity. So do not love the world. Do not love the things of the world. Romans chapter 1 talks about worshiping the things that were created rather than the Creator. So that's it. You got to see the world through that lens. You got to realize that's not my motorcycle. It's here for a little bit, and it's going to be burnt up. Nothing will remain of it. But a new heaven and a new earth and eternity with Jesus, that's what I want, man.